Last week, our Jewish friends celebrated their religious holiday of Purim. Purim is a celebration of an event happened back probably about 700 BC in Persia, at a time when the Jewish people were living in that area, and there was a plot to kill all the Jewish people. But the Jewish people, led by Esther and her uncle Mordecai, sort of outwitted the opposition and turned the tables on them. And the last couple of chapters, it mentions that the Jewish people killed their enemies, which is unfortunate theme of the Old Testament. There's a lot of murder or slaughter of hundreds of thousands of people in the names of tribalism, in the names of religions, or in the names, basically the names of vengeance. So that's a great theme of the Old Testament, and a lot of folks go back and quote Leviticus, the 24th chapter, which reads, everybody's familiar with this, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Everybody knows that one. Well, actually, that was sort of an enlightened modification or restrictions to unlimited vengeance, as a lot of people did in those days. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to one of our blogs from St. Mark's Episcopal in Dalton, Georgia, particularly those people who join us on Facebook and YouTube, and we appreciate the comments we're getting from those sources and everything, the following we're getting. But let's talk about vengeance for a little bit, because unfortunately, even though we're past Old Testament times, vengeance is a big theme in our society, both among groups and also individuals. And I'd really hate to admit, but I'm often tempted by vengeance, not necessarily much as physical vengeance, but verbal and emotional vengeance. So I fall for that and have to guard against it. And to justify our vengeance, a lot of times Christians will quote different things from the Bible, as Christians are prone to do. And they'll quote from the 12th chapter of Romans, from Paul's letter to the Romans, where he says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." But this is sort of selective quoting, because Paul's message in that 12th chapter is very different from that. Paul is actually sort of paraphrasing Moses' farewell speech to the Israelites in the 32nd chapter of Deuteronomy. When Moses does say that, he says that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. But then Moses clarifies that in the very next verse. He says that the Lord will vindicate his people. So Moses is more talking about justice than he is retribution. But let's listen to what Paul says in that 12th chapter. If we're going to quote that, let's get the gist of what Paul was getting at. When Paul says, he says, let love be genuine. Hate is evil. Love is genuine, but hate is evil. Bless those who persecute you. And he says, paraphrasing Jesus, he says, give not evil for evil. Love peacefully with all. Never avenge yourself. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. Overcome evil with good. And that is the theme of Paul's letter there. And Paul quotes Jesus' Sermon on the Mount and the New Testament as turning the other, teaches us to turn the other cheek. Pray for those who persecute you. We Episcopalians carry this forward in talking about God, and we speak of God in the Eucharist part of Rite 1 when we say that, says, speaking of God, we pray that thou art the same Lord, whose property is to always have mercy. I think that's significant, to always have mercy. Is that way of looking at God and what God expects for us. So yes, we Christians are tempted by vengeance very much in our times, by thoughts and by actions, but we are also taught in the New Testament to turn the other cheek, to pray for those who persecute us. We are taught to do better than to be vengeful people. As Christians, we are instructed that because we have received God's love and God's mercy, it is our responsibility to then also give God's love and God's mercy, so that we become God's love and mercy in the lives of other people. And that is our duty and our privilege as Christians. So during this season, we can try to live by those words, and we can say, thanks be to God.